If National Treasure 1 is like getting a puppy for Christmas, National Treasure 2 is watching it get splattered by a garbage truck. Now, this movie came out 3 or 4 years after the original, and while I didn't see the first one in theaters, I did see this one, and what I remember about it is not much, which almost always seems to mean it was something my 12-year-old brain simply couldn't reckon with.
When I was a kid, I saw the second one. I remember I wasn't that impressed.
The second one can lick my
kind of weak. It's kind of weak.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that it's bad per se, it just happens to be a horrific massacre of something I once loved. Let me show you what I mean. Right off the bat, the movie's just a pure rehash of the previous film, but worse in pretty much every way. Gone is the charismatic and driven character we knew as Ben Gates, replaced instead with this depressed shell of a man, delivering his lines like your mentally decaying grandpa, constantly forgetting and re-remembering how his story goes.
When the ship was finally retired, Queen Victoria had 2 desks.
Riley's still a weird nerd that's also somehow broke again, and they're both back to being lunatic, treasure-hunting nobodies, as if the first movie never even happened.
My girlfriend kicked me out. I'm living with my dad. And my family killed President Lincoln.
The rest of the Walmart great value ingredients are also mostly the same. Start off with a historical flashback. Blonde lady does some doubting.
There is not a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence.
You saw the page yourself. There is no treasure map on it.
The parent is very disappointed.
This better not be about that dumb treasure.
Oh, this doesn't involve another treasure hunt, does it?
And there's a bad guy with an accent.
I don't think you fully appreciate the gravity of the situation.
With all due respect, sir, now you're calling my great-great-granddaddy a liar.
Mind you, a very, very bad one.
Man only has one lifetime.
Man only has one lifetime. My daddy was a horse. But despite all that, the tone of the movie is completely different. The cool, subtly tense aura of the last movie is completely thrown aside in favor of constant Marvel-esque funny banter injected into every scene.
Women, can't live with them, especially if they change the alarm codes.
And even sometimes slapstick like it's Charlie Chaplin. Now, by this point, I'd usually start telling you more about the plot, but this movie is such a convoluted rat of ideas, it's hard for me to organize any thoughts about it. But I guess the best place to start is to talk about the puzzle.
A movie like this that's basically a puzzle, and the puzzle has to work backwards and forwards, and then it has to connect to history. So it's very hard to make that work.
In a movie like National Treasure, the puzzle is absolutely critical, not only for the entertainment value of uncovering a secret, but for the very structure of the narrative. The puzzle is what guides most of the plot and determines the logical order of the story, so it's imperative that it's easy to follow and makes sense. Now, I watched National Treasure 2 several times for this video, and I still found myself baffled at certain references to the clues and people supposedly motivating the story. And yeah, maybe I'm stupid. So let's take a listen to director John Turtletaub on set try to explain just one clue to the actors.
Wilkinson has the letter from Pike to the Queen, from Queen to Pike, that has that third part of the puzzle.
He has no idea what the hell
I'm doing great. Stop it.
I was so utterly discombobulated by it all, I scrawled this flowchart to try and piece it all together, like I'm hunting the goddamn Zodiac killer. But that's exactly what this movie is. A killer of reason and imagination. It's a rabbit hole from which there is no escape.
But don't worry, because you're coming right down with me.
So the movie starts out much like the first with this historical flashback scene, this time about John Wilkes Booth the day he assassinates Lincoln. But first he has some errands to run and drops off this cipher for an ancestor of Gates to decode, specifically his great-great-great-great-grandfather. That will be important in a second. So, okay, you think this is about how the assassination of Lincoln was some conspiracy to uncover some secret treasure. Well, that would be cool. But no.
Well, I doubt it has anything to do with the plot to assassinate Lincoln.
Instead, we cut back to the present where Gates is informed by Ed Harris that he has found this Booth Diary page and that Thomas Gates' name is on it, which apparently immediately implicates him as the lead mastermind in the plot to assassinate Lincoln.
It was Thomas who called the meeting. A meeting to plan the assassination of Lincoln.
Which really upsets Gates.
How absurd.
And this burning desire to exonerate his great great-grandfather from the 250-year-old crime is the central character motivation for the entire movie. To which I reply, who gives a shit? Well, the writers firmly understood the answer to that question is no one. Which is why they wrote a whole scene just to try and convince you and me otherwise.
Do you know the expression, his name is Mud?
Yes, of course.
You do? Do you know the origin of the expression?
Does anyone but you?
Dr. Samuel Mudd was convicted of being a co-conspirator in the Lincoln assassination. The evidence was circumstantial. He was later pardoned, but it didn't matter. Mudd's name still lives in infamy, and I will not let Thomas Gates' name be Mudd.
But the whole thing is so profoundly stupid, because not only do the characters not know that story, completely invalidating the point, it's not even true. Turns out, Mudd, just kind of bad. But anyway, back to the puzzle. So they decode the cipher, spelling out some French dude named Laboulaye, which leads them to the Statue of Liberty in France, which leads them to the Resolute desk at the Buckingham Palace, which leads them to this ancient wooden plank, which leads them back to this.
Well, I doubt it has anything to do with the plot to assassinate Lincoln.
And 45 whole minutes into this movie, we're finally informed of this movie's grand treasure, the ancient Mesoamerican legend of the City of Gold. Which by now is a well-worn store device thanks to dozens of films and TV series exploring the same exact idea, ranging from the 1950s all the way to this 2019 Dora the Explorer movie that actually rates way better than this one. It's a concept so bland and ubiquitous that when Nick Cage was initially brought on for the first movie, he actually suggested almost this exact same idea to the directors, and they told him to take a hike.
And when I first signed on to do the movie, I thought to myself, well, if I'm doing a treasure hunt movie, I want to get under the ocean, dig up Spanish doubloons, and look at Aztec pyramids and temples. And they said, no, that's been done.
It's an idea so mundane that when they did end up making an entire movie about it 3 years later, they didn't even put it on the title. Now, you won't find any references to the City of Gold on the cover of this DVD. But what is on there instead? National Treasure Book of Secrets. What the f*** is the Book of Secrets? Here we go. So after translating the plank, they figure out it's only one half of the message, with the other half being in the other Resolute desk in the Oval Office. So they rummage through the president's desk, only to find that the second half is missing. Well, where is it? Well, it was found by one of the former presidents and placed in a special location only presidents have access to, the president's secret book. So to clarify, this book's relevance to the movie is that it's a place where one half of one of the clues was incidentally moved to. And they put that in the title. It'd be like if Pulp Fiction was called Uma Thurman ODs on heroin. It'd be like if Shrek was called Donkey. It's really dumb. Now don't get me wrong, I like the book. It's supposed to have all sorts of super cool top secret stuff about the JFK assassination and Area 51, but that's exactly the problem. Compared to the plaques and wooden planks and burned diary pages in the rest of the movie, it's all just kind of sad. So okay, they need the book, only the president has the book. How do you get the president? Well, I'm sure Gates has a plan.
How do you expect to get the president alone?
Before the Civil War, states were all separate.
Okay, yeah, so they kidnap the president of the United States, and in the process have this heartfelt exchange where it really looks like both of them might start to cry.
I believe you to be an honorable man, sir.
Gates, people don't believe that stuff anymore.
After which, the president decides Gates is pure of heart and gives him all the info he'll need to locate the Book of Secrets. And I do mean all the info.
Gates.
Sir?
The book exists.
Where is it?
XY234786.
Thank you, sir.
You'll also need to know 3794.
Got it.
And Gates.
Sir?
619 370 5238. Call me. Let's hang out. And finally, after locating this extremely top secret presidential book they keep at a public library, Gates finally has the last piece of the puzzle he needs to locate the City of Gold. Except he doesn't. As it turns out, there's one more clue that Gates needs that only this guy has. A letter from Queen Victoria herself to this guy's great-great-granduncle, Confederate General Albert Pike. The clue itself is impressively stupid, basically just telling them to dump water all over the ground until they find a bird thing.
It's ridiculous. We're gonna water the whole thing?
But I'd like to take a moment here to step back and re-examine a couple details the movie just sort of glosses over. The Queen of England sent a letter to a Confederate general so he could find the City of Gold. On the surface, this sounds kind of dumb, but the movie actually has a pretty cool explanation for this, and it involves the Knights of the Golden Circle. The KGC was a secret organization formed during the American Civil War with the main objective of forming a new country out of the US South, Caribbean islands, and several Mexican territories where slavery would be super legal. This is all real. They had an official seal and meetings and all sorts of crazy ideas on how to accomplish this, even going as far as planning to kidnap Lincoln and instate their own guy as president. The movie implies that Queen Victoria would actually want to help the Confederacy do this to destabilize the US.
Divided America would have been weaker.
And they needed cotton from the South.
And so is trying to help them find the City of Gold as a means of funding the operation. It's honestly a pretty cool idea, and while it isn't true in the real world, totally makes sense for the movie. But it does leave us with one tiny question. How the does the Queen of England know where the Aztec City of Gold is? I'm not making this up. They casually lay that out and they never explain it. I had to make a diagram just to get to this point, and then they hit you with that. They must have either cut out the part of the film where they explain it, or just forgot and hoped no one would notice. And I think it's the second one.
We were so unprepared to start shooting this movie when we started shooting this movie. We knew we were making National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets, coming out December 21st. That was about it. We didn't finish the writing before we started the shooting.
There are days where literally it isn't until action that we actually know what the dialogue is going to be.
The end of the movie inside the treasure chamber is at least a bit of fun, but even when they finally find the city, it just barely means anything. The reason to find the treasure is disconnected from the treasure itself, which is in turn disconnected from the clues that led to it. But while all of this is bad, in my opinion, the greatest sin of National Treasure is how it missed the whole point. The magic of the first movie was about that $1 bill you carry around in your pocket. The clues are all around us.
Jerry Bruckheimer and John Turvall, they said, this is what's interesting, that it's here at home. That is what's exotic.
But when the first movie became an unexpected hit, it seems like they got caught up in making it bigger and completely lost the core philosophy.
In the first movie, the clues were all around us. In this movie, the clues were all around the world.
Suddenly, it was all about traveling to Paris and England because they were new and exciting. Even going as far as building the puzzle and narrative around the fact they found a pretty location to film at.
We found an extraordinary place where there is a full, perfect Statue of Liberty in the middle of the Seine River with the Eiffel Tower in the background. It's as if someone built it for us.
And all of this is made even more disappointing when, towards the end of the movie, they find themselves back home, rediscovering the magic they'd known all along.
With all the amazing places we went, the least likely suspect became our favorite. There seems to be something a lot more exotic in saying we're going to Paris than saying we're going to South Dakota. Oh my Lord, we all fell in love with South Dakota. There's an enormous amount of culture, American culture, not just the Americana in the West, the Native American culture. It has a historical aspect, it has a visual aspect, and a spiritual aspect. Everybody who went to Paris or London said, wow, this is great, I'd love to come back here, visit. We were looking at houses in South Dakota.
Overall, National Treasure 2 doesn't manage to live up to the original, but does manage to be an aimless, soulless, half-baked cash grab that's so disappointing it should fit perfectly on the modern Disney Plus lineup. I guess it's time to check out that show now. Gates. My hands are all sweaty. I've never been alone with a man like this. My balls itch. And Gates. You have anything else to say? I'm done.